Thank you for joining us on this call. My name is Brian Marvel. I'm president of PORAC. Before we start this, I'd like to have a little disclaimer. This call is being recorded, and we'll make sure to send out a link after the event for your future reference. Joining me today is Damon Kurtz, Vice President of PORAC, and the Region 3 representatives, Tony Sanders of the Ventura County DSA, and Marshall McLean from the Los Angeles Airport POA. Your time is incredibly valuable, and even more so during this crisis, so I definitely want to thank you again for taking the time out to be on this call. As we mentioned in the email invitation that went out, we're going to begin with a brief update before we get into the question and answer phase of today's meeting. Before we take any questions, if you're using the Zoom app, you can click the raise hand icon on the bottom left of the Zoom window. You'll also be able to see the hand icon turn green. That way it'll help me identify people that have questions. Let me begin by saying we're faced with an unprecedented challenge, and our law enforcement community wants you to know we are your partners in addressing this challenge and containing the COVID-19. Law enforcement agencies throughout California have deployed teams of officers to go above and beyond their call of duty to aid their communities during this crisis. We're helping to deliver meals to seniors and at-risk youth. We've assigned officers to grocery stores and new emergency shelters to ensure people feel secure. Some of our law enforcement agencies have moved to longer shift, canceled training and vacation time to make sure that our staffing is appropriate to meet the needs of our communities. Peace officers support all first responder calls, and I think this is important. You have to recognize when somebody calls 911 and reports a fire and a medical emergency request or a welfare check. I would say by and far, peace officers respond to those calls, and usually we're the first ones on scene. While there's a heightened need for officers across California, we've had a number of law enforcement officers test positive for COVID-19 and many more who have called in sick due to the symptoms of COVID-19 but who have not been tested. Along with our doctors, nurses, and food providers, our officers play an essential role in responding to this crisis, and we too are feeling the strain on our resources. Our objective today is to provide you with a brief overview of the resources we need to ensure we can continue to proudly serve our communities during this difficult time. As you know, preventing the spread of COVID-19 is the primary objective of this nation, and it's ours as well. Essential personnel must continue to show up for work, are at greater risk both of contracting and spreading the virus. To keep our officers and those we serve safe during this pandemic and to help contain it, we are in urgent need of additional personal protective equipment, which you've probably heard as PPE. Right now, we have officers in the field that either have no masks or only one. Officers are having to choose between wearing their mask or offering it to an individual they're interacting with. Our officers are running low on disinfectant that is needed to properly clean their vehicles and equipment between calls. I recently came in possession of a national law enforcement report. Law enforcement, which includes jail facilities and court security, will need approximately 11 million N95 masks, 11 million disposable gowns, 11 million eye protections, 23 million gloves, and almost 2,300 gallons of disinfectant. One of our second priority is testing. We're trying to secure expedited testing sites for first responders showing symptoms or who have encountered an infected individual. We recognize that we have limited tests available across the nation and within our state. However, our law enforcement officers come in contact with some of the most at-risk citizens on a daily basis, the homeless and elderly. We cannot keep these populations safe if our officers are unknowingly carrying or transmitting the COVID-19. I recently read reports where people can be asymptomatic with the COVID-19 virus, which puts more people in jeopardy if our own officers don't even know they have it. Seen in Seattle and Chicago about first responder only test sites. Sadly, in Chicago, when they opened it, they ran out of their test kits within 4 hours. Seattle's had the greatest success to date, and they were the first. California must establish designated COVID-19 testing sites for first responders throughout the state. Been told to me via the governor and our website that was created by the state, there are 22 health labs with testing capabilities. Recognizing that it will take time to establish these sites, high-risk regions with the greatest number of confirmed COVID-19 cases should be prioritized first. Third, and more of a midterm priority, is to establish COVID-19 as a presumptive occupational illness to be covered under workers' compensation. As peace officers and first responders are essential personnel, they are exempt from California's shelter at-home order and are significantly at higher risk for contracting the virus in the course of their duties. Should any officer or first responder contract the virus while performing their duties, we believe this qualifies as a work-related illness that should be covered by workers' compensation. With that said, we are currently working with the governor's office and the pro tem's office to draft language and have it reviewed to either do it via an urgency legislation or through an executive order. With the testing, we want to make sure that we have a quarantine space for our officers who test positive or need to be quarantined to determine whether they have the virus or not. As officers are risking their health and safety in the course of performing their duties, we must make sure that they have a safe place to go if they do come down with the virus or need to be quarantined. The governor is currently providing homeless individuals exhibiting the symptoms of COVID-19 with the purchase of hotels. We looked into the hotel occupancy rates, and it shows that they're hovering around 10% statewide. We believe similar arrangements can and should be made for peace officers serving our communities, especially those that have families. One of a longer-term priority is vaccinations. As I mentioned, keeping our community safe requires that we also keep our officers safe. We recognize that a vaccine is being worked on, and hopefully one will be out very soon. And when it does, we want to make sure that our public safety first responders are on the priority for receiving it, or if there becomes a medical protocol that mitigates the effect of COVID-19, we want to make sure that we're on the priority list for that one too. So in closing, I want to emphasize that our officers are ready to do everything in their power to support our communities during this crisis, but they also need your support as they rise to meet this moment. We're asking our state and federal elected officials to introduce urgency legislation and support an executive order by the governor to help ensure our officers have the resources they need to show up for our communities during this crisis. While an executive order may preclude the need for urgency legislation, we're asking that our elected representatives pursue both courses until we have a viable path forward to getting our officers the resources they need. Now I would like to turn it over to our region representatives.
Are you there, Marshall?
I am. Good afternoon.
Would it be possible to talk a little bit? I think you're one of the harder hit agencies in the state at the moment. If you could talk a little bit about the officers that you do have infected and quarantined, and maybe discuss a little bit about what's going on with the airports in general.
Okay, so the airports in general, we've got, I believe the last count is either 40 or 45 officers that are being monitored right now. I believe the count is 12 that are being quarantined right now, including our chief of police. We actually have 3 confirmed positives. We expect that number to go up. We're still waiting on the results. On average, the results seem to be taking 4 to 5 days. Initially, they said 2 to 3. I don't know why it's taking this long. Our chief was tested on Friday, and he still hasn't gotten the results as of yet. And then those who had tested positive, they're doing fine. They're quarantined with their families as well. But the problem is now the doctors don't know if the patients are no longer contagious after the symptoms subside, and that they're asking at least one of them to remain at home for an additional 2 weeks after the symptoms actually subside. And then we also represent, or my union actually represents LA City Park Rangers as well as LA Municipal Police. And we just found out that there's potentially 3 cases at the parks. And that's crucial because what the city of LA is doing right now, and I think it's a knee-jerk reaction to this lawsuit that's been filed against the city and the county about doing more for homeless. They're setting up a lot of homeless shelters right now, and so they're going to want both LAPD and park rangers to man these shelters. And as Brian mentioned, there's just not enough PPE for all of these officers to go around. So we're putting our folks more at risk by putting them in and around shelters with potentially contagious people. So anything else you want me to talk about, Brian?
No, that was it. And I know, I believe Tony Sanders is on the line. I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about his area.
One last thing.
I can talk about Santa Barbara and Ventura County. So to begin with, good afternoon. Currently in Ventura County, we have 50 known cases with 1 death. In Santa Barbara, they have 24 known cases with no deaths associated with it. There is problems getting PPE equipment, as Brian mentioned earlier. We are having some issues with, for example, in Ventura County, they do not want to recognize this as a workman's comp issue. Whereas in Santa Barbara County, they're offering their officers 160 hours to go on kind of like a bank that they need to get supervisor's approval to utilize to stay at home sick because of a family member or they're not feeling well themselves. And as I stated earlier, Ventura County is basically causing the officers to utilize their own time. And you can imagine if an officer has a low vacation or sick bank, they're not going to call in sick. They're going to come to work feeling ill. Of course, they would like to see more equipment, disinfectant stuff to help them get out here and do their job every day.
Hey, Tony, do you have a centralized location where agencies can request PPE?
No, I have not been told that we do.
Okay. The reason I bring that up is we had a teletown hall for the Region 4, which encompassed the Inland Empire, San Diego Imperial, and Orange County. And I found out earlier today that I was told that if you were a agency in the County of San Diego, that if you requested supplies from their emergency operations center, that they had ample supplies on hand. So we're going to put that information out for the San Diego Imperial chapter, but I'm just curious if you have those in your area.
Yeah, in talking to our executive director, she did not indicate to me that Ventura County has, or Santa Barbara County has such a location.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to respect people's times. I know they probably have some questions, so I will open it up at this time for anyone on the line if they had a question for us. No questions. Randy, did you want to add an additional thought to what we had talked about?
Yeah, Brian, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I had to switch to my phone. My iPad just died right in the middle of the conversation. Hey, I just want to be clear that what PORAC is doing right now is they have met with the Pro Tem's office and have submitted some language for a C-19 presumption, work comp presumption, so that officers who are either quarantined or eventually are diagnosed with COVID-19 will immediately be able to go through the work comp system, get the help they need, and get back on the street. But in addition to that, because we don't know when the legislature is going to be coming back in to run an urgency bill, we have asked for an executive order from the governor's office. They are looking at it right now, and we're hoping that they would be able to do that through an EO. It isn't just law enforcement. We are working with firefighters as well. And it's our understanding that if any other organizations or groups like hospital employees and the like are working towards the same thing, that we would work with them as well. This isn't just about law enforcement. So that's what we're doing right now on that front.
All right. Thank you, Randy. I believe Marshall wanted to add a couple or one more item about the decontamination professional decontamination companies. Did you have more on that, Marshall?
Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of missing here with just across the city, the state of getting professional companies to come in and decontaminate areas where our officers are congregating, the locker rooms, the roll call rooms and such, because that you're having, we know that it lives on surfaces, this virus, and to just have your regular janitorial staff to come in with cleaning, that's all fine and good, but the actual professional companies come in there and they'll fumigate the entire place. And I think there needs to be some funding for that, and even that being a priority to have done. I know a few months back when the city of LA had a typhus epidemic and a couple of police stations had some officers contract typhus, they brought some companies in and did that. So I know there's companies out there that are capable of doing it. It's just not being done because a lot of cities and counties want to use their own professional workers and not contract it out. But by using the city or county workers to do this, you're putting them at greater risk as well, rather than having a company that's going to come in with the full gear on to do it.
All right. Thank you, Marshall. Open it up for questions again from any of the electeds or their staffers. I had a question for you, Tony, that we'd had on some of the other calls yesterday. How are your officers being deployed to enforce the COVID-19 restrictions, or in your case, the deputies?
Yeah, so my understanding is they're not actively pursuing, like if people are congregating in a park, issuing citations and stuff like that yet. The sheriff put out a video basically urging the deputies to use common sense and not try to be so aggressive, for lack of a better term, in dealing with these situations.
Okay. And just to add to that, we're hearing up and down the state that the police forces are being used more as an educational tool, and that they're using more of like code compliance and other agencies within the counties and the municipality and the state to enforce the governor's executive order. All right. One more time for questions? No? All right. Well, I really want to... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This is Joanna with Congressman Carvajal's office. So he was actually on the line for the first 15 minutes or so, but then he got disconnected. So he sends his apologies for not being able to get back on. But, just want to reiterate that, he was on the call and he wants to make sure that you guys always see his office as a resource. If there's anything you guys need, please let us know. And I know the House is set to vote on this COVID-19 package tomorrow, which should have some information over for law enforcement. And if you guys have anything else, please let us know.
Will do. We appreciate it. And we appreciate the Congressman's solid support. I can tell you that the part of that piece of legislation, there's $850 million through Burn JAG, which will allow departments to be able to apply for money for reimbursement on PPE and overtime issues that may arrive. It's my understanding a variety of agencies throughout the state are going to start implementing 12-hour shifts to increase staffing, getting officers out onto the streets where they're desperately needed at this moment in time. Hopefully we'll have a greater analysis once the bill's passed and signed by the president. Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, hi, this is Assemblywoman Christy Smith. First of all, I wanted to say thank you for pulling this call together and presenting your priorities in such an easy to digest way. Wanted to flag for you that I've been in contact with Assemblymember Jackie Irwin, and she also had started the process of authoring a bill on presumption for workers' comp. So I know she and I both would be happy to be involved in any effort if we can be helpful on that and any of these other issues as well. But thank you so much for putting this together.
No, thank you. I really appreciate you being on the call, Assemblywoman, and thank you for all the support. I know Randy's on the call, and he'll definitely be in contact to talk more about that. I thought I heard maybe one more person had a question.
Yeah, hi, this is Alejandra with Congresswoman Sanchez, and thank you so much for organizing this call. It's really helpful to hear from you all directly. My question is, can you elaborate a little bit on what your role is with LA County regarding the homeless population and efforts around that? I know that's something we've also been tracking closely, but we want to make sure, of course, that people who are supporting those efforts are also safe.
I might have to turn that over to Marshall. He's a little bit more experienced with the LA area. Unfortunately, the Los Angeles Police Protective Lead is not affiliated with us, but we can definitely get additional information and get that over to your office.
Great, thank you.
All right, Marshall, are you in contact with Craig and stuff?
No, but like I said, we represent the municipal police, so there's about 25 guys there, and I can just read off what I got from him recently. They're setting up, I believe it's 13 locations across the city, which will have LAPD officers staffed there with park rangers there, and those are those locations. I know they're also looking on a county situation as far as just next to the airport at Dockweiler Beach of setting that up as a quarantine area as well. I don't know what LA County Sheriff's role is, but like I mentioned earlier, I think we're going to get some direction or fallout as a result of this lawsuit against the county and the city in regards to homelessness and shelters. So we're kind of waiting there to see what happens with that as well.
Marshall, would it be possible if you send us a link to the that lawsuit that you're talking, and we'll make sure that we disseminate it to everybody on this call?
Absolutely.
All right, I will add one more time for questions.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm Stan Henderson with Congresswoman Karen Bass's office in Los Angeles, and she's on board to support you guys in any way that she can at the federal level.
We appreciate that. All right, well, thank you very much, and let the Congresswoman know that we're very appreciative of her support, and we'll make sure that we follow up with her.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else? No. Well, hey, I want to thank everybody for taking the time. I want to let you know that we probably will do another one of these when our survey results come back. We'll probably have more information on what exactly the personal protective needs are in your area, along with getting a better picture of how many officers have contracted the virus and where that stands. So thank you again for attending the meeting, and have a safe day.
Absolutely. Do the same.
Thank you.